Welcome back. This is K24 This Morning. We're looking at the big stories of the day right here, of course. A first look at your papers as well. And you love your views on the news. You can tweet us at K24TV. You can also SMS us on 21222. Gabriel Gitao saying a very good morning. I don't think this is the issue right now in Central Province. Kwa ground kunaka different sana as far as that's concerned. Daniel Omusebe, watching from Upper Central Estate, Mumias, loving the discussion going on right there. We also have Daniel Jamhuri watching from Kahawa West as well. What's your take on the stories we're discussing so far? You can get your views on as well at K24TV. We're also joined by Arnold Maliba, our public policy analyst as well. A very good morning.
Morning, Jeff.
Karibu sana.
How are you?
Good. Just before we took the break to bring Arnold up to speed as well, we're talking about the ICPD Nairobi Summit that's supposed to be happening in Nairobi. A lot of pushback from the church on this. Nerima says that even if at the Nairobi Summit we don't discuss these sexual issues, they will be discussed somehow. So even as we're talking about this, let's put this into perspective as well. Dennis, is it the fact that the church lapsed in terms of talking about these matters when it comes to homosexuality and everything else, and now this lacuna is being filled by such summits, and now they want to play catch-up? Is that the problem we have with them trying to organize or threatening to organize a parallel summit?
No, absolutely not. And by the way, I want to say that the IPD and UFPA, they've been very methodical in their 20-year need to change culture. It has nothing to do with rights. Right after this, I'm actually facilitating a session for the church for this. And what it is that we want to do is that we want to discuss honestly the matters that plague us, that ICPD doesn't present them. And we have 5 critical areas. And we have, without any malice or anything of the sort, discussed them and researched them in a very open manner. And we engaged Parliament. We presented at Parliament. We engaged all other quarters. And what even ICPD have, the organizers, they have blocked out anyone who is from the religious community into their own discussions. So there are 5 matters that are central to this movement. And just let me mention one.
Very quickly, please.
The first one, very quickly, is that most of the multiple 20-year ICPD review outcomes documents aggressively promote 2 things: abortion and controversial sexual rights. And I won't even go into the 5. Mm-hmm. The 5, if you're interested, by the way, we have an event at All Saints. Please come and hear these things. Mm-hmm. The truth of the fact is that if anyone thinks that these UN organizations are honest, please review their documents. And perhaps they won't let you in. It's a small, close-knit society that is promoting a culture that is against the culture of life and proper family. And this is a discussion that we can openly have. The facts are there. The documents are there. We are inviting anyone, whether you're pro or against, come we discuss these matters openly. And we need to ask the UN organizations, why are you locking out everybody and basically working with people that you have radicalized against the matters of life and against the matters of objective, value-based sex education, which the church wants to propagate.
Ruth, let me bring in on this as well, because those are very heavy allegations made by
They're not allegations, they are facts. They can come and denounce this.
Okay, Dennis, we hear you.
Call them and you call me for an interview.
I can see Nerima shaking her head. I wish she was the one to respond. I wish she was the one to respond to Dennis. But the reality of the matter is that we need to accept and understand as a country that we are not a religious state. We are not, and neither are we a secular state per se. So we are basically a neutral state that accommodates, in its design in the Constitution, accommodates all religions, all beliefs, you know, the rights to freedom, the freedom of conscience, belief, thought, and expression and all that, yeah? So it becomes a very tricky affair when a country that has not pronounced itself as a religious state proposes to limit certain limit your expression. And I'm not also, neither am I taking a side in terms of supporting the gay agenda or anyway. I'm just saying that, we as a country designed ourselves in a particular way and we cannot run away from it. And for me, my direction would be that how I wish the church participated actively in building the society rather than waiting until things have broken down beyond repair to begin making a lot of noise. Because some of these societal orientations that take place, some of these cultural penetrations, this foreign cultural penetration that gets into our culture and way of life, are things that could have been prevented had the community, had the society, had the church participated actively in its role of bringing up the society in the manner in which society should be brought up, bringing up the youth and the young people in the manner in which they should be brought up. The other conversation is around sexual and reproductive health rights. I mean, when the church is running away from conversations about educating our young ones about sex, educating our young ones about the safe way to engage, because the reality is that they are engaging. You cannot run away from it. Why not just foster that discussion about if you have to engage, how do you do it best? Because when we do not have such conversations,
if you have to engage.
when we do not have such conversations, we lead our young people and our young girls to procure illegal abortions and die in the process. And yet these are things that could have been prevented. So for me, I always say that we should stop being a reactionary society and begin dealing with issues from the root. Because gayism, and for those opposing gayism, there is a place that gayism came from. You know, there's a place that it came from. So yeah, and then again also sometimes we should be very careful that when we are sometimes we should be, let me finish. Sometimes we should be very careful that when we are castigating some of these practices, can we go back to history? Because personally, there's a part of history of Kenya's history that I have read that even said that there was a point in time when women would marry each other. You know.
No,
so
you don't
Okay,
know.
wait, even as we move this conversation forward, I want to bring Arnold in on this as well. Arnold, Bishop Makarioki is saying that as we talk about sexual and reproductive health, this is a quote from him. He says, sexual and reproductive health rights is a new frontier in the quest towards greater population control. The ideology that high population impoverishes a nation is a fallacy. So they might, according to Bishop Makarioki, come in the guise of trying to bring these particular rights and health, but underneath is a quest for control of this particular demographic and this population. What's your take on that?
For one, I think matters of religion can be very, very controversial. And you can actually see the zeal and the passion
in display.
But it will also be wrong for the church to actually say the other people are radicalized, when the church itself, and I am a practicing Christian, we actually are a group of radicalized people also. Yeah. We stand on the other side. And for quite a while, I will probably take you back in history. For quite a while, the church in this country propagated a story for far too long, that there had been a secret meeting somewhere in Abuja. And for a long time, you heard about an Abuja declaration and how to take over. They no longer talk about that today. So the church is also full of myths. You know,
the Abuja declaration happened.
It has never, and I actually wrote about it for for quite a long time. But today, it is no longer an issue. So,
what do you feel about Bishop Mark's remarks?
I'm actually coming to that. Homosexuality is as old as mankind. It's in the Bible. Yeah. If it weren't mentioned there, of course, the Bible is talking about it, whatever it's talking about. So it's not new when Bishop Mark says that it's a new frontier. It was always there, as in, man is actually a messy creature. We are not very perfect, and we are not going to straitjacket everybody. Live and live, let other people live. Right. So I feel the church has got a right to voice whatever they are saying, but then to try and then impinge on other people's right to assembly, right to associate, is also going rather too far. They do not welcome everybody else in their assemblies.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. No, the church is an open place.
No.
The church,
can they allow
you? Please,
please protect me.
As well, I can see.
That's untrue.
As you said, it's very passionate.
That is absolutely not true.
So there are spaces within church. Church is actually a closed place. It's actually closed space. It's not open for everyone else.
Yeah,
if it were open, I'll tell you this. The church, in my understanding, should be a panel-beating garage. Yes. It's not a showroom where the perfect, well-finished vehicles are supposed to be there for exhibition. But today, what do you say of church? Anything that looks like has got blemish, every ship that has got a shorter leg is actually kept behind. We can only see straight and good stuff. It's a showroom. Until the church,
You're referring to the clothes, not the ship.
Until the church opens up to the fact that they are a panel-beating garage, these people will not be walking away. They will not be avoiding them. The church should be a place of refuge. But you can actually see the way they're actually behaving like terrorists. You know, people are organizing their own stuff. And they are all over bombarding. Well. And by the way, let's talk about the structure of our state. That government and religion are separate.
Yes.
But they're not separate in the Constitution. Can I address this thing, please?
We are not.
A
theocracy.
religious state,
We are
yes.
not a theocracy. By the way, if these guys just became honest, we would actually listen to them much more, including the ones I actually sit under. I have no problem with them. But you see, Jeff, whatever church you went to, let's just take you to 2017, they told you whom God had said was going to win.
Exactly.
The same God who had spoken to them, now at this particular time, they speak in one voice on this particular issue. When it comes to things that matter in this country, to the normal Mwananchi, different gods speak to different people. You find a God in Kisumu telling
I hear you,
a
Arnold, on
politician in
this.
Kisumu
Let him
differently,
finish.
and a
No,
God
let him
in
finish
Kiambu
because he's agreeing to
telling
your
the
need.
same
I think you need to give us a rebuttal. You've given him too much airtime. And it's not
Tumbi,
factual.
please,
Yeah.
you just have to follow.
And it's not
then
factual.
from there we let you
I agree.
say your piece on this, so you'll have to hold your piece on this as well. Nerima, something that has been brought up, and as you can see, Dennis feeling like he's being outnumbered on this. Is the church not inclusive enough, and that's why people are looking for spaces where they can express themselves? And now that they go there, the church is feeling like, no, don't have that. It's either us or no one else. Is that what we're having
I
right now?
actually want to ask Dennis a question in terms of these solutions you're talking about, the meeting that you're having. What are the solutions that your church has for teenage pregnancies?
Well, that's a good question. Should I respond to you or to her?
Start with this.
No,
Yeah.
to me, because I'm answering.
The truth of the matter is that I actually love that question. You know why? Because we have crisis pregnancy centers. We call them Linda Uhai centers that actually look after crisis pregnancies. And these are basically teenage pregnancies. So we have a center in Muranga. We have one in Nairobi. We have one in Malindi. And we're actually looking to raise money for more.
Okay.
And at the end of the day, so the truth of the fact is that we have actually policy documents. We're also working on a family policy document together with the government that addresses these very matters. The church has had a meeting within itself, and we acknowledge all the issues that are there, and we acknowledge the breakdown of the family. The truth of the fact is that we have actually actual, functional, ongoing programs that are there. And I like to say, by the way, when somebody says that the church hasn't done nothing, that is an ignorant statement, unfortunately. You know why? 60% of the schools today are owned by the church, all right? Almost, perhaps 50% of the universities are owned by the church. The hospitals, so. You understand? The truth of the fact, and by the way, tons and tons of mentorship programs based on purity and whatever it is. My church, where I go to, 3 days of the week, we reach out to teens in informal settlements.
That's his church.
By the way, let me tell you what.
doing what
No. The truth of the fact is that 3 days a week, 3 days a week, and what we do is that what we do is that we teach them on matters. We don't give them condoms and say, just go and have sex, be
No,
promiscuous,
that's not what is being
have
taught.
children.
That is
not
Then when you have
what
children,
is
being
that is what
taught.
ICPD is
That's
doing.
not what
But
it's
one of the
doing.
things, that is what ICPD is.
No.
He's not even a
ICPD,
misinformed.
what do you mean? But I know. I mean, do you want me to show you my UN badge? The truth of the fact is this. Let me tell you the truth. ICPD is not bringing a solution. It's bringing a problem. And the problem is the propagation of a negative culture that is against life. When you come and tell us to abort and not give birth, a nation as young as Kenya, with a low population, the UK has a landmass smaller than us, and we need to populate in this country. The fact of I appreciate the honest conversations, and I'm not saying that church is a perfect place. I like what Arnold has said. The truth of the fact is that church is a place, is a hospital of broken people that are forgiven. Church has its doors open. I don't remember anyone who came to church. Let me tell you the truth.
That's your church.
No, it's not my church. Look, I work with multi-organizations in church. I would love for anyone who has been sent away from the church to
can
contact me
introduce you to
personally.
one.
You
I
understand?
will do that.
I would love that because
I will introduce
there
you
is
to
no church that should act
will.
like a cult of special people. The church is a broken place, and that is why Christ died for us on the cross.
Okay, Dennis,
the
before you
truth
get
of the
into,
fact, let me tell you what, 1 minute,
We are not
1
in
minute, just 2 seconds, 2 seconds.
Because we have
The
to move
truth
on.
of the fact is that our solution on the issues that this country are facing will not be propagated by a corrupt government that is killing its own citizens. It will be propagated by an honest church that is doing exactly what God loves. And that is, at the end of the day, lift the brokenhearted. You understand? That person who is struggling with whatever it is, lift them from that dungeon and let them see the love of Christ. We cannot be here accusing
Dennis,
a church
you'll have to
that is
move on.
our hope.
Okay,
The hope
people
of the
have to
nation
move
is
on
a
this
church.
particular because,
And by the way, the
Dennis-
preamble of the
Dennis-
Constitution is
we have to
multicultural
move
and
on from this.
multi-religious. Yeah.
Please remind Thumbi
How can you remind me of something I know?
remind him that what is manifest at the king's palace starts at the altar. So we are not going to talk about a government when the government we have is a reflection of what the church is.
No, the government is a secular state.
We are now
How can you say? How can you say that they are different?
Dennis, we have to have order. Arnold,
No,
we are
but
moving on
he's
from this and moving on to the next story
No,
right
no,
here.
no, no.
We're moving away from
You
this.
say they are
because
separate and then you say
Dennis,
they are
we have to
together.
have some order right here. Arnold, we have to have some order. Dennis, please, let us move on, please, because we are now digressing into matters, politics, and we're talking about what are happening as far as the Nairobi summit is concerned. Clearly, lots of passions right there. And because of that, we shall use that as a segue and move to the politics of the day. Ruto Raila in war of words over violence. That's what the Daily Nation is talking about. In the Standard, BBI keeps counties, reduces MPs to 210. But all of this happening, of course, with the Kibra by-election sort of catalyzing this particular process. The former PM saying that now that the Kibra by-election is done, next stop, BBI. This is a story that was covered as well. In case you missed that, take a look at this and then we discuss what the Kibra by-election means, talking about people getting into the bedroom being locked. But more importantly, is this now what they needed now to move into the BBI phase? Let's take a look at this and then discuss that.
And today, they came out guns blazing at the DP. Speaking in Kibra during the Thanksgiving rally for the MP-elect for Kibra constituency, Bernard Okoth, the ODM brigade insisted that they owe no one an apology.
William Ruto anasema ati sisi tulikuwa tunafanya fujo. Sisi hatukuwa tunafanya fujo yote. Watu wetu wapige kura kwa amani.
Jana muliona huko wasingishi vile watu walitukanana machafu. Si ndio? Hiyo yote ni uchungu.
In what has now turned out to be a war of words between DP Ruto and ODM, they have called on the deputy president to first apologize over the violence that was witnessed in Ganda Ward in Kilifi County, where a man was shot dead during the fracas. They also condemned former Kakamega Senator Bone Halwale, who was caught on camera throwing stones in Kibra.
And I want to tell the Minister for Interior, for Internal Security, can you immediately arrest Boni Halwale? Yeye ndiye analeta violence after Kibra.
ODM has accused the deputy president of propagating lies, saying that he was bitter after losing in the mini polls that was seen as a contest between himself and ODM leader Raila Odinga.
Nataka kuambia naibu wa rais, hii kitu haitaki hasira bwana. Hii kitu haina hasira. Hii ni mwanzo wa safari yetu Kenya wa kukomboa nchi yetu kutoka kwa wakora.
On his part, ODM leader Raila Odinga said Imran Okoth was voted into office by people from across all the tribes residing in Kibra, thanking the residents for overwhelmingly voting him.
Mimi sasa nimeshika ile turukumu ya kuweka Waluhya pamoja. Mmefanya vile nyinyi mliwaahidi. Kwa hivyo shukrani sana kwenu.
The ODM leader said that the Kibra mini polls outcome was a true reflection of the BBI, which he said will end politics of hate, tribalism and corruption.
Tafadhali mutupatie ripoti ya BBI, sisi tusungumzie, Wakenya wasungumzie, wajue ni nini itakuwa ni bora ama ni nini itarekebishwa.
Tunaambia tunaelekea kwa mambo ya BBI. Hii ilikuwa ni mchujo, lakini lingine inakuja.
Welcome back, of course, sights and sounds from what was happening in Kibra. Of course, that was a Kibra by-election Thanksgiving right here in studio. Another different sort of fireworks going on right here, but we'll have to move on, ladies and gentlemen, and we'll have to discuss this particular issue from what we've seen and what we saw during the Kibra by-election, and of course, the Thanksgiving that was given. We look at the front page of the Daily Nation, and they're talking about Raila and Ruto in a war of words over violence in that particular area. We saw Junet Mohammed walk in with a cap very similar to what Didmas Baraza wore, and making a gesture out of what we saw, because we actually saw Didmas Baraza being scuffled, being held by the scruff of his shirts by some gentlemen in that particular area. So as you look at this, are we having a situation where even the people in charge of elections in ODM and the leaders of the party are okay with violence as long as it's not meted to their particular people? Is that what that was showing?
And that should worry all of us. That people can actually glorify and celebrate violence should worry all of us, because no one has got a monopoly on violence. Because what ODM has done is actually to say that so long as violence works for them, it is okay. The same ODM that will not let us rest for any, as in, we will not hear to the end when anything happened to them or their supporters. And now, okay, you know, Dismas Baraza, Halwale, Washiali, and all the others were agents, just like Omolo, Tiendo Omolo, Sumra, Mili, Simbarati, and all others who do not come from that end. They were agents. Yet, somehow they were never given peace to stand anywhere else. If you look at Dismas Baraza's attack, it was unprovoked. He said nothing against them.
In fact, he was trying to make
he
peace.
actually was making peace. But you realize that it was pre-planned, and they just had to humiliate him. Truth is that for us who actually do the business of analysis, we knew too well that ODM was going to win. There was no need of using violence. And that is where the danger is. Because Kibra now then opens up the handshake for discussion. Because one of those explanations that have been given for the handshake was that there will be no war around elections. There will be no fighting. There will be no such activities. You know, the thing is that Dismas is actually elected by a few people. When you humiliate him the way you did, then his people actually take the initiative. You know, he is a representative of our people elsewhere. So when you beat up a whole grown man until he squeals and you laugh about it, you say we did well. It's not the best of things. And I'll actually say this, that ODM needs to actually rethink, walk back, do not over-celebrate. I think our politics must get to a level where people should actually be magnanimous in victory and gracious in defeat. Okay. But even as Mariga reached out and stepped aside, he was actually very gracious in defeat. ODM has not been magnanimous. They are gloating and they are all over, they are celebrating the whole thing. And it is wrong because it is the over-celebration that makes the people on the other side. People do not fight for very big things. Perhaps, Jeff, as I wind up on this point, is that I'll take you to the First World War. It took an assassination of the Austria-Hungarian somewhere in Sarajevo, in Bosnia. Just an assassination of a person on the peripheries, and then the whole world fought. It is small things that spark very big conflicts.
And Nerima, even as we look at this, we're looking at a situation where, as we wait and see what direction this will take, because we're hoping the NCIC will investigate this, the police will come in on this as well. But as they have the Thanksgiving rally, what they're talking about is the fact that the BBI now is coming. We won't talk about what happened in the by-election and what we saw that the handshake should have actually squashed in terms of most people, having violence in that particular area. We have locked the bedroom. BBI next move. What's your take on that? It seems like the BBI is coming whether you like it or not. This was just a tick on the box and we move on.
The BBI is coming, but what will test the BBI is the genuine implementation of political figures. As long as they are battling over grounds such as Kibra like that, where we're taking by-elections like a national election, we're talking about 2022 politics, where we've already started campaigning, and as Arnold has just mentioned, in terms of the BBI, talking about, reducing ethnic violence and even electoral violence and things like that, then they have a bigger bite to chew. And that's something that I don't think that they realize, because even during that campaign, when we saw who Raila had to bring to the ground in terms of governors and people who support him, they are not the usual faces that we had seen in 2017 when they were campaigning. And even it looked like a one-sided team when it came to Jubilee. And those are some of the things where when we talk about the BBI and we talk about national cohesion, all of them have to be on that table. Whether you like them or not, we all have to be on that table. And it's already beginning to show that there are people who do not belong, and they're not even trying to be invited. They've been told that you're out. And so it's a very worrying situation, because even as Arnold has mentioned, it's not just a particular individual, it's a whole constituency that they represent. So what are you saying to the people of Kenya? That it's just for some people, the handshake belongs to some people, and it will break. It will not go anywhere as long as we continue with this animosity in our politics.
And even as we look at that also, Dennis, let me come to you and address the issue of what we saw in terms of display, both during the last campaign, prior to the by-election, and the Thanksgiving. People from different quarters who not necessarily belong to Nairobi politic were there. We had Governor from Machakos coming for the Thanksgiving. Before that, we had Governor Anwe Guru there. We had Machakos Governor as well there. And looking at this political alliance, so to speak, is this also to inform what we might see in 2022? That lineup right there, take a look at it, mark those faces. You'll see them again in a different formation.
Yeah, and one of the things that has come to pass is that traditionally, ODM has been accused as a cradle for barbarism and ethnic cleansing. And what it is that we have seen in Kibra is unfortunate. But what is more unfortunate is a silence from DCI and CS Matiang'i. That is the most disgusting part of the entire of this story, because what you do traditionally is that you arm politics to quarters that you might not be able to deal. And when we deal with the politics of force, we must then address the legitimacy in very many other quarters. But the visits you saw from Mutua, from Waigoro, and from others is basically posturing and aligning themselves with Baba for what BBI is bringing forth for the next constituents of the new government that BBI is set to form. And I know you asked me, how can you know that when the report hasn't been tabled? And I said that, you know, the conversations of men are spoken because they're already in their hearts before they are written down. And I've always stuck to the guns that the next political environment in Kenya is something that we have never seen. And I'll repeat again, but the worst thing is the ineptness of the police force. Because what we saw in 2017, that we had young men standing against an entire battalion of police. They don't care whether they'll die or not, but if Baba tells them, let's move, and they'll move at the end of the day. So we must be very careful where we are taking this nation towards. And DCI must address this thing. I don't care what it is that they do. They must show that political violence is not entertained, because we are likely to jump into PV again. When we've never addressed issues of TJRC, we've never addressed matters of Kriegler report. This country is just a shocking country that reports collect dust, reports that can save this country at the end of the day. But what happened in Kibra is not just an onslaught of democracy, but it is the entrenchment of thugocracy. A government of thugs by thugs for government.
We'll take a break at that particular point. We'll come back and have Ruth's take on that particular issue. Also, we might have Senator Kang'ata online as well as we talk about this particular issue, and also what happened in Murang'a in terms of the president and the deputy having a no-show in that particular area. We want your views as well. Even after the break, you can tweet us at K24TV. You can also SMS us on 21222. Back with more after the break.